Have you ever noticed how people talk about the trials and tribulations in their life? People who choose a life of mediocrity often talk about these trials and tribulations as if they're major obstacles. In fact, these trials and tribulations become excuses for the life of mediocrity that these people have chosen. Compare that to today's guest, Jay Rosenthal. Listen to how he describes the challenges he faces in his life. We'll get back to that at the end of his story of his True Azimuth. Please welcome Jay Rosenthal, a former Child Protective Service investigator and founder of CPS Consulting Services, to the show. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Scott. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
It is a privilege to have you here, Jay. I think people can learn a lot from how you face adversity as you've chosen to follow your true azimuth. Tell us about it.
Well, the time I struggled to follow my true azimuth goes back to August 2017. I was born with 16p13.11 microdeletion syndrome. One of the most debilitating symptoms is epileptic seizures. One day at work, I had a seizure. When I collapsed, I fell and hit my head on the tile floor, hard. Back then, I was so insistent on living as close to a normal life as possible that I checked myself out of the hospital against medical advice, thinking I was okay, and went straight back to my office. My supervisor was surprised to see me and asked why I was back. I told her I intended to finish my workday, which she refused to clear me for, and as politely as she possibly could, told me I would not be finishing my workday and would be going home instead. I wasn't going to win that argument, so I packed up and went home. It was on my way home that my head started to hurt, a pain like I'd never experienced. I didn't actually make it home. Instead, I was again transported to the hospital, a different one this time, where I was diagnosed with an acute subdural hematoma, a bleed in the brain. The mortality rate for acute subdural hematomas is particularly high, 50 to 90%. But somehow, despite my prior actions that day, I survived. There had to be a reason. After all, my luck was never that good. I hadn't found my purpose, yet I'd survived. At the beginning of 2020, I started working for Child Protective Services in New York, conducting child abuse and neglect investigations. It was hard work, sometimes dangerous, but I cared deeply about it, and in it had found my calling. However, as I gained more experience, I came to find that the government agencies performing these investigations are inefficient, rife with corruption, and what should have been a noble service looked more like a disaster. It was no more efficient or dedicated than your local DMV. While asking myself if I wasn't there to make millions, and I didn't feel like I was helping families, why was I doing this work? I wondered if there were a way to do better. I had three choices. Abandon my calling entirely, stay where I was and deal with the system currently in place, or create what I thought was needed. At the same time, my doctor informed me that medication alone wasn't working and we needed to explore surgical options. Thus, in 2021, I began an 8-month journey of countless doctor's appointments, tests, 3 hospitalizations, and 2 brain surgeries that resulted in implantation of a relatively new technology known as the RNS system, which may open doors I had once never dreamed possible. Before the final surgery in 2022, I quit my job, forfeited my pension, and prepared to launch CPSprotect Consulting Services, a first-of-its-kind consulting firm designed to help families and other parties prepare for and navigate child protective services investigations. I get to actually help families and be the change I want to see in the world. I am healthier, happier, and more fulfilled than I have ever been in my life. Granted, it hasn't been an easy road, but if it's easy, it's not usually worth doing. Doing something great requires risk, and it is from these risks that I'm learning, growing, and finding meaning in the world. Clearly, I survived that acute subdural hematoma for a reason. I think I found it, in CPS Protect.
Well, did you hear it? Did you hear how Jay talked about the trials and tribulations of his life? Not only did he not magnify them, he actually dismissed them. He said, if it's not easy, it's not usually worth doing. And risk, he said, doing something great requires risk. He embraces those things in his life that other people might shy away from and use as excuses for choosing a life of mediocrity. So take Jay as an example and design a life, build a life that embraces those challenges, and you are bound to follow your true azimuth. Jay, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
My pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show. To find out more about how you can preserve your rights and protect your family, please visit our website at CPSprotect.com, send us an email at contact@cpsprotect.com, or give us a call at 844-633-KIDS. That's 844-633-5437.